Correct. Do I just
talk. Don't move it. Just talk. Oh,
well, okay.
okay. Here. Ready?
Good evening. I just want to let you guys know if you could, there is lemonade and water and regular and decaf coffee to my right over here. And if you want to go ahead and get your drinks and then please find your seats, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Wait. It's going to be too close. Are you kidding me? I speak loud as it is. It's not. Hey. We'll give you one more minute to find your seat, please. Jim Murphy, we're trying to have a meeting here. We're going to get started. Good evening, LakePoint. Good evening, LakePoint. So you guys were really desperate for pie, weren't you? Fought the bad weather, came here to listen to numbers. Thanks for running the meeting, Ron. Anyways, welcome to our business meeting. The intention is to cover some stuff from the previous ministry season. We didn't have a business meeting due to COVID, of course, and to give some updates on this ministry season as well. I hate this thing. Anyways, my name is Chris Collins. I'm the lead deacon here at LakePoint Church. And as I was saying, so the idea is we're going to go over some business operational stuff, financials, give some reports, a little Q&A. Pastor Jesse is going to discuss some of the church vision going forward after that. And he will also close us out. But before we get started, I'd like to ask Dave Schoenfeld, our House of Prayer leader, to come up and open us in prayer.
Thanks, Chris. Oh, Father God, we praise you for this day. And we come before you with our hearts open to what you have for us. And Lord, I ask your blessing on this time, that your Spirit would minister to us and through us, that we would be submitted to you as Lord over LakePoint. And I thank you for the people that have worked so hard behind the scenes to put together the business side of our church. Lord, I ask that, I just thank you for the business part of our church. Lord, that we live in this world and that we have to function in this world. And Lord, we want to offer that up to you with integrity and with just open hearts, that we would be before you and present this to bless your kingdom, that we would operate with spiritual integrity in this world, and that we would glorify you in this church, LakePoint, that you would bless us and anoint this time. Thank you, in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thanks, Dave. Before I get started, for the benefit of any new members of the church and possibly someone attending the business meeting for the first time, I just want to give you a brief idea of what we do here. The church has deacons, and we oversee the finances of the church. So basically, we're the financial team of the church. They consist of myself as the lead deacon, Bob Tenbosch, sitting over there, Jerry Hammerlin. You hear Jerry? Right there. Dan Simon, which is back there, next to his lovely wife. And our newest deacon, which is Jim Murphy, who has been a long-standing elder in the church, and Jim's helping out now on the business side, and we appreciate it. We meet monthly and even bi-monthly to review the monthly financials of the church. And we also meet, we put together a budget every year at the end of the ministry season, and get it approved through the leadership council for the next ministry season. We oversee the monthly expenses of buildings and grounds, the safety team, the preschool. So basically, we oversee all the business operations of the church. That's what the deacons primarily do. We also tend to monitor the giving through Reach so that we can kind of stay on top of that. And just so everyone's aware, the church operates according to a fiscal year, which is September 1st through August 31st, unlike a calendar year, which would be January 1st through December 31st. And there's a few reasons why we do that, but one of them is because near the end of the season, we're focusing a lot on budget, and if we follow the calendar year, we'd be primarily focusing on budget when we should be focusing on Jesus. So, it makes sense to not do that at the same time. We're always looking for additional church members to join the financial team. We're always looking for help. If you haven't taken a SHAPE test through the church, I would encourage you to do so. It would help you to determine, what you're good at, where your interests are, and maybe you might find out you'd make a great deacon. So I would ask that everyone consider doing that. And if anyone ever has any questions, concerns, or anything financially related, please reach out to a deacon or myself directly, and we'll definitely try to, get you an answer or help you with that. So that just kind of gives you a basic idea of the role of a deacon and what we do. I do want to go over some financials with you. This is the fun part. How many of you were disappointed to find out you actually had to sit through the meeting to get the pie? So that was strategic. Anyways, I want to go through a quick overview. If you could put the slide up, Tim. You'll see that the ministry season previous, the 2019-2020 budget was approved at $1.1 million. And one of the things that we always do every year is we determine, the church tithes on the income that comes in. I don't know if everyone's aware of that, but we do. We give back. And our tithe allocation amount for that particular year was actually 12.1%. So we tithe more than the traditional 10% that you would normally expect. And you'll see that at the end of the year, the income actually came in at $1,079,067. And the expenses were at $1,010,287. That was a difference of $68,780. Now, one of the things that we also do, most organizations have reserves set up, and we have been trying to fund reserves here at the church. And the deacons agreed that every year we were going to put $75,000 into reserves. The goal would be to reach 6 months worth of reserves, which isn't unreasonable for an organization. When I first came on as a lead deacon, we were, if we had a month's worth, that was pretty good. So we are working at that. And so you'll notice that by putting in reserves, it actually put us in the hole about $6,000 for the year. Moving into this current ministry season, we set a budget of $1 million. And you'll notice that it's a little bit less than the previous year. For most of you that have been around LakePoint for a while, you're aware of the fact that, the church has shrunk a little bit. The giving was on a downward trend slightly, and so we have to take that into consideration year after year. I am pleased to say that it looks like we've hit a floor, because we're not gonna see less giving this year than the year previous, which is really a blessing. So, especially during a time of COVID, I mean, the church has really been blessed financially. Anyways, so we had a budget of $1 million this year, and through a lot of faith, we decided to increase our tithe amount from 12.1 to 13.1%. So we're actually giving away $141,358 back out to the community and through other ministries throughout, the country and around the world. So far, the ministry season obviously isn't over with, but so far, our income is $815,958 for this ministry season. There's a couple things that I need to explain, because it seems like it's a little high, but we were blessed with a rather large check this year from an estate of someone that passed away and left us some money in their trust, which was a blessing. So that makes the income look a little more than what it typically would be from just typical general contributions. But anyways, the biggest thing that I want to point out is the expenses, which is $533,576. That's probably about $144,000 lower than it normally would be at this time of year, or approximately 21%, which is directly related to COVID. I mean, the church was closed quite a bit. A lot of ministries weren't up and operating the way they normally would. So expenses have been down. We currently see a large surplus because of that between the giving of the estate and expenses being down. You notice that currently we have $282,000 to the plus for this ministry season. Now, if you take out our reserves, which we will be, that puts us at $207,000 that we're currently sitting at, which is actually really good for the finances. I'm sure that going forward, our expenses are starting to come in more reasonable now. The church is fully open again. We're going to see the expenses go back up, and we'll be back to where we need to be. But for this ministry year, we will see a surplus at the end of the year, which is money that we could use. There's too many things around the campus that we want to spend money on, so it won't last too long. Moving on, can you bring up the contribution slide? No, the numbers for the 2021, we only have financials through April, so we're into May. If you think about it, we're 8 months into a 12-month ministry season, which is approximately 67%, which if you put up the contribution slide, it'll help you to see. So to give you an idea, last ministry season, our contributions were $1,043,275. Currently, we're at $693,076, which is in line with the previous year when you look at 67%, into the ministry season. I would speculate that if the giving continues the way it has been, our end of the year giving will be comparable to the year previous, which is why I say that we've kind of hit a floor and we shouldn't see any more downward trend, hopefully, in the giving. So I can't say it enough. We've definitely been blessed with giving in this church, especially through COVID and everything else. I think a lot of that is due to our faith and obviously giving back the way we do. To give 13.1% back of every dollar, that's a lot. So can you go to the income slide? Yeah. So just to give you an idea, on top of general contributions, there is additional income that comes into the church. The primary ones is preschool tuition. We do have a preschool program here that most are aware of. You'll notice that I have the 1920 numbers, and it was pretty low. We had actually closed the preschool down last ministry season due to COVID. It took a rather large hit because of that. But this year, currently, through the end of April, we've taken in $36,443. We do get facility rent as well, and we're actually ahead of last year. Same thing, last year, COVID, right? We weren't leasing out the building. And then we still have the building fund that a lot of people donate to. The large estate check that we got happened to go into the building fund, and you'll see why it's so high for this year. So it's at $70,000 currently, but we had a large check go in there. There's a couple other things that affect income. That is interest that we make on investments and bank accounts. Unfortunately, in the last ministry season, there was a period of market correction. We've had some investments in some annuities, and annuities are great. They give you a floor on your losses. They give you a ceiling on your gains, though, as well. But we happen to lose a little bit of money in that. So you'll see that's why it shows that we lost $15,616 during that time frame. We've actually made some changes, and we're moving things around. We're looking at different investment vehicles now, so just everybody is aware of that. And then there's always special contributions. It's really nothing to take into consideration, but there was $20 there. But these are these are primary, everything that makes up the income for the church. You got your general contributions, and you have the rest of this. So we tend to focus more on general contributions. This stuff stays pretty steady, and we can count on it. Can you go to expenses? Yes.
What was the asset amount on the investments? What's the net worth of the investment?
So do me a favor. There's going to be a brief Q&A later. Can you ask that? That's a pretty loaded question. So. So the reason expenses is down is because every ministry in the church has a budget, X amount of dollars. And if the ministry isn't up and running, they're not spending money. So if their budget was, let's say, $50,000 for the ministry season, and they're essentially shut down due to COVID, and they only spend $25,000, we have $25,000 extra that they didn't spend. But in the next ministry season, they're still going to need a $50,000 budget. So this is a one-time situation where we're going to have extra money due to expenses being down, unless we get hit with another virus. So let's hope that's not the case. So, yeah. So you'll see, monitoring the expenses. We have the 5 base paths. We follow the purpose-driven church, and, we have worship, connect, grow, serve. Reach and non-reach make up our tithe allocation. So our tithe allocation of 13.1% this year, a certain amount of it goes to reach, and there's a certain amount that goes to what we call non-reach. In non-reach, we have benevolence, counseling, community meals, stuff like that. And then we have our buildings and our grounds, our operations, our personnel budget, which is the largest part of the church, and then we have preschool. So again, you can kind of see in most instances, the expenses are down, and it shows that in the chart. So the one thing about personnel, we do pay our staff. That's going to come in even. We're not going to have extra money there. But in a lot of the other ministries, we will see, a surplus. So one other thing I'll point out, since the preschool program started in the church, it's gone through some different transitions in how we treat it and trend it and everything else. So you might notice up there where there was only like $5,300 in expenses in the previous ministry season, we're at $25,000. It's not that the preschool all of a sudden started spending 5 times more money, we're just tracking it differently. I could talk about the preschool for a half hour, but we're not going to do that here. So, and then if you go to the final slide, this just kind of shows you, again, this is the current ministry season through the end of April only, and gives you an idea on the expenses. You can see generally payroll is 50 to 55% of our overall budget. Buildings and grounds, we try to keep it about 15%. Operations, we try to keep it about 15%, so those two come in at around 30%. We have found out that with our current budget amount, those amounts are a little low. We're looking at trying to make some corrections for that because the buildings and grounds need some investment in different areas. But it kind of gives you an idea of where we're currently at this year. And again, the expenses totaled $533,000 roughly. The idea was to try to give you a brief overview. I like this stuff. I could talk for 2 hours on it, but I know you're thinking pie. So we're we're gonna limit the amount that we discuss it. But yeah, I do. One thing that I do want to do though is we're gonna give some brief reports on some of the areas that we oversee, and I'd like to start with a brief facilities report by none other but Bob Tenbosch. Thank you.
I was hoping for the Navy, theme, Anchors Away. Yeah, usually you see me up here in a veteran's capacity, right? But my love and my passion and my profession is facilities management, and I give it all to this church, frankly. Yeah, thanks. Managing and maintaining our facilities is a time-consuming, often tedious work and multitasking knowledge. For example, facilities manager has to be a planner, a plumber, a carpenter, a janitor, an engineer, architect, financial, painter, construction manager. He needs to know ecology, ergonomics, and basically belong to a solutions provider. That's what they truly are. They're basically the jack of all trades. We're always seeking methods of doing this work in a cost-efficient manner and establish cost savings initiatives to control expenses for LPCC. Every dollar we can spend, rather, every dollar we can save on the expense side gives us money on the income side. Pastor Bob has done an outstanding job in taking the ownership of the facilities and the grounds to turning things around. Let me just give you an example of what he did just between the months of April and May, beside the regular day-to-day duties that he performs. We refurbished the bathhouse. New plumbing, it's painted, looks pretty, and it's about to smell nice. He's outsourced the lawn care and maintenance, saving this facility a substantial amount of time as staff workers about 12 to 14 hours a week just cutting the lawn in the summertime. So now that staff person can be put back into the maintenance side of the business. Built and installed a new dock gate and working on the dock as we speak. The FLC emergency generator needed to be repaired as a rodent ate some wiring, electrical wiring, thus making the emergency generator inoperative, and that was taken care of through a preventive maintenance program. Organized the spring cleanup and organized the FLC kitchen deep clean. That's something that has to be done actually after every time it's used, fully functionally used. Burgess Hall renovation, this is what's coming up for all of us. Before I get into that though, Pastor Bob hired a company, did some air sampling tests, and he opened up the exterior walls. We discovered no mold. There's some mildew from water damage that has been done over the years, and the carpeting it smells, and it is mildewy, but there's no contaminants or anything like that. There were 2 inside air samples done and 1 outside, and everything proved normal. So now we're getting into the fun stuff. We're creating a Young Life Center in Burgess Hall. It's going to be modernized. We're providing a new children's ministry space, 2 nursery rooms, a refurbished kitchenette, classroom and activity center, a removable multi-purpose platform, new audiovisual lighting and sound equipment, modern multi-use space with a new floor covering. So I'll be working on that over the next few years. We're taking out the nurseries from one space, the Clark Center, and we're renovating the Clark Center to be our LakePoint Community Church Conference Center. We'll have a new enclosed entryway at the lobby, which, by the way, is going to be funded by a FEMA grant. And Kevin's going to talk about that in a moment. We're creating meeting rooms and a large conference center in the back. We're expanding the existing safety team office, and we're also building a new unisex toilet room. The other element that we're working on with Bob and Jim Murphy and consultants and vendors is we're establishing a comprehensive inspection form, what I call a facility condition analysis, that will document all our facilities, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and providing current, as of 2021, assessment of every building's maintenance which means the roofs, walls, doors, windows, everything that you can think of that has a maintenance issue to it. We're going to establish an order of magnitude of costs that will enable us to then plan and budget properly for the future. And while doing that, we're also going to be developing a preventive maintenance program with staff, consultants, and vendors. So,
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Oh, Bob? Yeah, as Jody pointed out, Bob is a volunteer in the church, and he volunteers a lot of his time, and we definitely appreciate it. So, and you probably also noticed that there is a lot of building and grounds expenses that we deal with on an annual basis. So we're constantly trying to plan for that, budget for that, just so that everyone knows. I'd like to invite Kevin Kill up. He's the safety team leader, and he's going to give a brief report and also talk about a FEMA grant that the church got.
Thanks, Chris. So, yeah, thank you. So last February, in February 20, our team was made aware of a new program by FEMA where they were giving grants to nonprofit organizations for the purpose of hardening the facility against the potential threat of a violent incident. So their presumption is that it's to deal with terrorist attacks, and they've done this for years. They do it with hospitals and schools and that sort of thing, but last year they opened it up to include all nonprofit organizations. We found out about it in February. It was about a 6-week process we had from the time we found out about it to fill out the grant, get bids on projects that we wanted to undertake. We had to do a threat assessment to have a police officer come in and actually go through the facility and help us identify what were our vulnerabilities. And then based on that, that's where we came up with the projects to renovate the facility. So that was in February that we found out about it. In March, we submitted the application, and last September we got a final notice of award that they had approved all of our projects, which was an incredible blessing because we kind of put together a wish list of everything that we thought would be really good to do in the facility, and they came back and said, great, go for it. So we were awarded $92,700. Yep. And to date, we've spent zero of that. Turns out that getting to spend government money is really difficult. You have to go through a very elongated process. We've had to update a number of documents internally to the church as far as how we procure bids and all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of learning that goes behind it. Because it's so laborious, Pastor Larry has taken on a portion of this as part of his job to help manage this. I think he's taken on some help to help with that as well, because it got to be too big for me in a big hurry. But some of the projects we're going to be undertaking are electronic programmable door locks. So on the exterior doors, you're going to start to see electronic programmable locks where staff and members will have cards or key numbers that they can use. It's also good for people that are just using the facility, like if they're here for a bridal shower or something. When they come in to set up, we don't have to be here anymore to let them in. We can give them a temporary code and they can, let themselves into New Life Chapel or whatever. We're going to put in a new alarm system because we get a lot of false alarms here, and we need something that's more up to date and something that can be activated remotely. You've seen some security cameras going in. We're expanding that system. One of the biggest areas that we got grants for were man traps. So as you enter Clark Center, there's just the exterior doors. So we're actually going to create another set of doors, and Bob Tenbosch has been immensely helpful in helping us design and understand everything that's required for that. So there's the covered gazebo out there now. We're going to be putting glass glazing in there and another set of exterior doors that creates a man trap, a barrier to help facilitate traffic there. And then the other big one will be as you enter Burgess Hall. We were concerned about unrestricted traffic getting into the kids area and the security that issues that presented. So we're actually going to be creating another man-trap barrier area there and creating a hallway that separates traffic going to the church offices from traffic going into Burgess Hall. So that'll help make our kids safer. And then the last two areas is some vehicle barriers. You're going to start to see some vehicle barriers go up in different places to try and help facilitate traffic. And then exterior lighting was a really big one. If you've been here after sunset, there's a lot of dark places where we don't think it's a good safe answer for ourselves. So hopefully we'll continue the learning process with what the government requires us to do, and you'll start to see some of these projects actually come to fruition soon. So thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. So I mentioned earlier, we oversee buildings and grounds, facilities, Bobby, a report, safety. We also tend to oversee reach and giving, and we oversee the preschool. Pat Harshel originally was going to do a report on reach, but since he's not here, I've asked Pastor Jesse to do that. And so, where is he? Oh, there he is. So I'm going to let him come up and do that.
The first thing that I have to say, see, I'm the only one not afraid of the mic, as you can tell. First guy. But I'm also the first person up here already that is actually a paid employee. And I only say that because you've heard from everybody who volunteer their time on top of their jobs or even retirement and families and those things. So I am just very appreciative of all of the volunteer help that goes in to the leadership. Thank you so much for that. Chris works tirelessly. He does a fantastic job with that, so I just wanted to put that out first. So I did get the reach letter here. One thing that when I took over as lead pastor that Pat wanted me to make sure that I was someone that was not verbose at that time. I didn't know what the word was, so I looked it up. I realized I was verbose. But his letter is 2.5 pages, so I'm going to be a little less verbose for Pat. He might be watching live stream as well. So, but as we know, we've talked about it a few times here, COVID really changed last year. As a church, as a ministry, as an organization, nobody was left untouched with that. And so one of the things that really hurt us in our REACH program was being able to go and do different mission trips. So we were not able to go to NISM. We were not able to go to Belize. We didn't even think about going to Kenya because they were shut down as a nation anyway. And so a lot of the trips and a lot of the things that we had planned, we weren't able to do. So we had to set certain of those things aside. If you do remember this past April, right during Holy Week, there were quite a number of people that helped with Holy Week and did something basically in lieu of doing mission trips outside of the country. We did a mission trip right here in our own backyard, and that was just a fantastic time of getting to know one another and people on that team. It was just amazing how that worked. Yes. We had a lot of fun. Who here was on that team? Can we just point you out? Yeah. Oh, they've all clustered over here. There's Mama Z. Good. As you know or should know, our church sets aside a certain percentage of every dollar that is donated from the church. We actually take 13.1%. When it was presented to me, it was supposed to be raised to 13. I said, there's no way we can do 13. We don't believe in luck, but that's a bad number. So we just rounded it right up to 13.1. There you go. So there we have it. So that means for every $10 that is donated, we have $1.31 of that we then give out as a church. So we also as a church tithe because we ask all of our members and attenders to tithe as well. So we have to tithe. Tithe is only 10%, but over the years we have grown that and seen that grown. And so we've had to raise that. So our budget for the tithe is roughly $130,000 that we give away every single year. During the past year, our church has continued to support Micah 6 and Pontiac with regular monthly donations. In addition, we have also asked our members to contribute in supporting the Micah 6 activities and support the kids. This is one of the ministries that we as a church have adopted. In fact, some of the people in this room have actually adopted it themselves, and we help Micah 6 quite a bit. You have been very generous with helping with school supplies, Christmas gifts, and a very successful bike drive. He wasn't sure of the count. I gave that today. It was 284 bikes that were given away yesterday as part of that, and that was fantastic. We also were very involved with Meals on Wheels. We supplied 75 different Christmas stockings and 40 Easter bags to Oxford and Orion Meals on Wheels recipients this year. We also worked with Samaritan's Purse. When we asked you to donate a shoebox of goodies to the needy children, we sent that money out as well. And now we're looking forward to being able to go to NISM this year in December. And hopefully, with all the different conditions permitting, we are looking to do another trip to Kenya, probably in the fall, hopefully, when we can do that. Many churches in the area and the country are struggling financially. It is true that over the years, as our membership has had some decline, our yearly budget is not as big as it once was. However, because of the stewardship of our deacons, the continuing generosity of our givers and our leadership has really beefed and bolstered that up, so we're very happy with that. Reach, so there's one thing that we have to kind of think about, and I try to spend some time explaining this, especially to members, because we have a reach budget, but we also have a tithe allocation, okay? So there are two things here that it might be a little bit hard to figure out without visuals. I know people like visuals. So think of it this way. That 13.1% is complete tithe allocation. Those funds are allocated to go out to various ministries. One of those ministries is Reach. So we take that 13.1% and offshoot on that. Some of it goes to Reach. In fact, 80% of that goes to Reach. The other 20%, not 80%. If you were to think of it in terms of the $1.31, as I was saying, for every $10, $1.31, 80 cents of that goes to Reach. So a large portion of that goes to Reach. But there are also funds that are allocated to benevolence, to counseling, and to, am I forgetting one? Community meals. Okay, so Reach gets their chunk, and then community meals, benevolence, and counseling are also a part of that. So sometimes people will say, oh, our tithe goes to Reach, and that's not true. Our tithe, Reach gets part of that, but not all of it. So when we talk about as a church of tithe, the funds that are allocated, part of that goes to Reach. The majority of it goes out to missions and into the community and those things. But we also use some of it internally for counseling. We offer counseling to people who need professional counseling. Pastor Larry does a lot of counseling here at the church. But if someone needs professional counseling, we are also able to help with that. And in fact, I get counseling myself, and so I only have to pay a small co-pay for that. I think it's maybe $10 or $20 depending on what it is, but that is not a lot of money for professional counseling. And so we're trying to offer that to people, as well as benevolence. Last year, we had a very sizable amount of benevolence that we had left over, and we rolled that over into this year. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how long the stimulus was going to take place. We know eventually that is going to run out, right? So we have kept that money for people that are in need. So if you know of someone who is in need, or if you yourself are in need, we have allocated funds for that. I know a lot of times people will say, "Oh, we don't want to take away from somebody else." But right now, you're not doing that. We will come up with that, and we will help with as many places as we can. So we send money to benevolence, and some of our money is also allocated to the preschool. So the preschool also gets funds from this as well, mostly from REACH, the REACH portion. REACH decided to designate some money toward the preschool for their marketing and also in hopes of drawing additional students. So REACH, some of the programs that REACH supports are the Abigail House, the Oxford Pregnancy Center, Oxford Orion Fish are just to name a few of it. Sidewalk Servants and the Veterans Ministry all come out of the REACH portion of it. And we also have some other ones that we've given extra donations to, like Elevate Detroit, the Baldwin Center, the Capuchin Kitchen, Hope Against Trafficking, Gleaners, and the House of Providence. So it's a great experience for us to, in every way that we can, try to give away $130,000. I feel like Oprah or Ellen every now and then, but it's really a great thing for us to do, and it's great to see people blessed by those resources. So thank you to REACH and the REACH team and everything that goes with what Pat is doing, and also the tithe allocation. And I want to thank everybody here because everything that you give, we, of course, budget it and do what we can with it. And it goes through Chris and his team and the whole process. But our goal is, as a church, is to give as much away as we possibly can. So by you giving, you're a part of a larger giving organism that is getting, because I don't know if anybody here can give personally $130,000 of your own money away. So when you give just a little bit, we will, as the church, will help you do that. So that makes you, furthers your tithe. So that's good. All right, so at this time, we've got a time for Q&A. Norm back here has the microphone. We are live streaming this and recording it, so we are asking that everybody, if you have a question either for me or for Chris or whomever, go ahead, raise your hand, and then we will bring the mic to you. That way the mic is on there, and questions, and then I'll step aside.
Yeah, I have a question about the REACH tithe allocation. Is there an offering side that when we have a special request, like for the bikes, is that not really part of the budget? That's just an extra offering.
That is correct. So when we do a special offering, if you remember, we raised $6,000 that went to the flooding. We put a call out for that to the congregation to give $6,000 or to give money. We raised $6,000. That actually doesn't go through REACH. That's on top of the $130,000. So the money for the bikes, we had almost $2,000 in giving for the bikes. REACH was able to give some money in case we didn't have enough to pay for 100 bikes, or if people didn't donate. So they kind of created like a little safety net, if you will, to help cover that. But you are correct. That is on top of the $130,000. So when we do special collections and things that come right from the congregation, that 100% of that goes right back out. Thank you for clarifying that with a question. Yeah.
Hey, just real quick, something also, when REACH actually does a budget as well, and they do have a contingency in there for things just like that. So they put aside a little bit of money just for things that we don't plan ahead for, right? That comes up that they want to support.
Okay, we have a question back here.
Are there any future stipulations other than what we've already done for the grant money that's coming from FEMA?
Any future stipulations? It's a fantastic question. I don't have an answer for that. Did Kevin Keel disappear? Oh, Kevin. Yeah, there you go.
It's too slow. Other than passing all their paperwork that we have to, I mean, we've got to get approved vendors Everything has to pass all they've got all kinds of hoops that we have to jump. Yeah, thanks, Bob. It is a 3-year period that we have these funds available to us. So if we can't get these projects going as soon as we'd like, we do have up to 3 years. One thing that I didn't mention was that this is a reimbursement program, so we have to spend the money out of our pocket and then submit the paperwork, and then we get reimbursed for it. So, that answer your question?
Any other questions about anything up to this point? Okay. So now we're moving into kind of the new part. Don't worry, I won't take long. Pie is waiting. And I haven't eaten dinner yet, so that I'm hungry. I'm going to go for pie. That's right. You're oohing and eyeing, yes.
Getting his way.
Yeah, right. I just wanted pie for dinner anyway. It doesn't matter. So one thing that we as leaders decided over a year ago was to become a 501c3 nonprofit. Now, according to the law, all churches are already 501c3s. But they're the only nonprofit organization in the U.S. that doesn't have to register as a 501c3. That's the only difference between nonprofits and churches. So we decided we wanted to register for a 501c3. There were numerous things that led us to that decision. But one of the big ones, and maybe you've experienced this as a member, sometimes if you are with your financial advisor and you're going through your what amount of money you've given, sometimes your financial advisor will say, hey, you can't give this to the church because that is not a registered 501c3. And we've had more and more of these as we've gone along from personal people, and they didn't realize that our church wasn't a 501c3. I've actually had phone calls and people scared, and the IRS, you know how the IRS can be. They like to scare people into paying them. And so these things had been happening over and over and over again. Now, it's a very simple fix. All you have to do is call the office, talk to Nicole. She gives you the right tag number, problem solved. But if you call the office on a day that Nicole's not working and you're sitting there with a guy, it's not a quick fix. You suddenly walk out going, what is happening? What is going on? And more of this was happening. And so we as the leadership, that was one of the catalysts that helped us to make our decision. But what we also decided was there are a lot more protections for our church under the 501c3 status than to not have them. An example of that is if we ever got audited, because we don't have that status, they can actually go back to 1986 when we became an organization, and they could audit us all the way back. I can't imagine them trying to do that, but they could if they wanted to. And they could make our lives very difficult, trying to bring in lawyers and whatever else. So we decided that it was probably time to do this and to go ahead. The leadership voted last, I believe, August, I think it was. It's been a while. We have not been able to meet as leadership because we had too many people according to the policy of the church in order to meet. And we figured since we weren't allowing events to happen at the church, we as leadership were not allowed to just meet after telling people we had to cancel craft shows and other things, and then we all show up, all 25 of us going, hey, that's fine, we're leaders. So it would have been a very hypocritical. And as most of you may have known, it is very difficult to communicate talking about a 501c3 over a Zoom call. So especially with 20, 25 people. So over time, we just kind of slowed down. Let's see what happens. We were waiting and what the government's going to do. What are we going to do? So that's the long way of saying we had not been able to meet until recently. We brought it up to a vote as leaders, and the leaders were good we finally voted and said it is now time to become a 501c3. We voted, and we are now moving forward with that. At the same time, to become a 501c3, to become this 501 status, we decided to, hey, why not? We'll throw a couple more things on there. One of the big things was to kind of revise our current bylaws. Many of you probably have no idea what our bylaws are, nor do you even care, and trust me, you don't. Unless we're not doing something right. If we're not doing something right, then you as a member would probably want to know about it. So the bylaws are keeping us in operationally where we're supposed to go and what we're supposed to do. So we decided to revise some of those, and at the same time we revised some of those, we decided to kind of look at also the structure of the church and the leadership therein. So we decided to do that. So the reason for that primarily is to reflect bylaws, to reflect the 501c3. But we're going to get into more detail about this at a different meeting. We don't want to take the time tonight because there might be a lot of questions, there might be a lot of confusion, there might be a lot of things. So what you want to do after you eat your pie is you want to first eat your pie. Did I mention pie? Then you will go out to the lobby. You will look for your name on an envelope. In that envelope is a letter kind of explaining what is going to be happening. And we have a meeting on July 11th to go over all of those things, okay? Following that meeting will be the opening to the vote on those things. All of that is explained in the letter. And you can also, if there aren't enough copies for everybody, we made a couple copies of the bylaws out there. You can grab one if they're still there, or you can sign up with Norm Fredericks. Norm is right there in the back. He will sign you up, and we will send you a digital copy of our bylaws. That way, if you are suffering from any insomnia or lack of sleep, you can just print that up, or put it on your phone, start reading. I guarantee you, just like the book of Deuteronomy, you'll be gone. All right? So that's kind of pretty much what that is all about, the timeline for that and what's happening. This kind of came out, and I'll explain it a little better in our meeting on July 11th, but it came out of a vision that I feel for the church and a path that we will be going to, and it's really been very interesting to see it all work out. But before we dismiss and go have pie, I did mention pie, right? I just want to thank a few people that were on the ELC. What the PLT did is, because it's a very big and bulky process, they decided that we would create, for lack of a better term, an ad hoc team that would help us to revise the bylaws and kind of work on the 501c3 project and all the other things that went with that. So the PLT voted, and Chris Collins is on that team, Norm is on that team, Jody Bratton is on that team, and Pastor Larry is on that team. All four of them have worked tirelessly, and by the way, besides Pastor Larry, they are, again, volunteers, have done such a fantastic job. I just want to thank them tonight for all that they have done and all their hard work up to this point.
Pastor Jesse was also involved.
Well, I was there, but yeah, I was trying to stay awake for most of it. But it is bylaws. But it is kind of true. I just kept trying to vote on them. That's all that I was there for. But they worked very hard on them. Now, I'm thankful that you clapped. You haven't read them yet, so you don't know what you clapped for, but that's okay. We'll send those to you if you want those. So at this point, I just want to ask if there are any other questions other than about what we're going to be talking about in July. Did you think of anything else about the first half of the business meeting? Any questions that we could answer for you? If you don't want to do it through the mic or on the live stream, you can see one of us afterward, any of the leaders, and we will try to direct any of your questions or anything else. As a teacher, this is called wait time. 3, 2. Oh, Dave does. Oh, the question, the loaded question. Yes. Now I'll turn it over to Chris, and then Chris, you can close after that.
I was prepared for that. You want to repeat the question? Dave needs a mic.
Somebody else asked me a question.
Yeah, the question about the investments, the interest, what is the asset or the amount of savings or funds that we have earning?
So basically, you're asking about our reserves, which is what we basically call all the extra money that we have. And currently, the church reserves is $422,100. And the bulk of that money is currently sitting in the highest interest-bearing bank accounts that we can find. So Pastor Larry has done a lot of work on this as the business administrator, but we've researched and tried to find places to put the money to get some interest on it. We are working with a financial advisor on looking at alternative ways to invest the money long term. Currently, before we do any of that, the deacons as a whole is looking at all of our upcoming expenses and trying to put together a spreadsheet of what we want to designate the money to, possibly see what's left over, determine how we want to invest it for the long term. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And another question.
I would like you to tell us who the deacons are and who the elders are at this time.
Well,
Go ahead. You can start.
So, again, the deacons are myself, I'm the lead deacon, Chris Collins, Bob Tenbosch, Jerry Hammerlin, Dan Simon, and now Jim Murphy. So there's currently 5 deacons.
All the deacons stand, please.
Jerry Hammerlin's over here, Bob Tenbosch, Jim Murphy, Dan Simon's in the back. And I'll let Norm and Dave
All
talk
right,
about the elders.
So can I have all the elders, the current elders stand? All right, so Jim Kozlowski, Roger Shuttleworth, and Kula, Dave, myself, there's Ken Miller, Burns Rowland, let's see, Bill Kirkland, and well, Jim Murphy was an elder, and he transferred over to according to Jerry, he jumped ship, and John Paulson. So we're okay with that because we know who he is.
And recently, Norm had stepped aside kind of on sabbatical while he worked on the ELC and worked, because he was very heavily involved in working out all the details of that. And he had personal family things to take care of too. So in that interim, I was appointed as the lead elder. So in the last couple months, I've been the lead elder and stepped into that, where Jim resigned and then sidestepped to the deacons. So we've had some shifting, but I'm very thankful for the work of the elders and what they've done recently, and the deacons and the entire leadership council has worked really hard.
More elders. Will there be opening for more elders? I've always asked that question.
Yes, in the future there is possibilities for elders. The structure will be changing. You'll have to look at the new proposals.
Yeah, we can't talk about it now. That's our meeting on the 11th, and that's according to our bylaws. So just understand, it's not that we're trying to avoid it, but our bylaws dictate that we need to provide written notification, 30 days minimum and then we will discuss it. So that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, no.
Because curiosity always kills the cat, my question would be, when we have the FEMA, because we have to do the expenses of the 92,000, do we know where the 92, would that be coming out of reserve? Or is it gonna be something else? Because the church will be dispensing the money.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. As Kevin was saying, you know, basically, we're gonna invoice to get reimbursed for the expense. So the initial expense will come out of reserves to do the changes that were approved, and then we'll invoice it, get the money, and then put it back in reserves.
Did you get your previous question answered? You had asked Krista a question when he was giving his presentation.
She was referring to the extra money that we had because expenses were down.
The only reason why is because I, in the past, have been the person that's done the problem solving when the money doesn't flow. So I worked with a group of people, and what they did was go over the last 5 years and figured out what it was, and then they ascertained the thing that saved the money. So that's how my brain works, sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And again, it's just to reiterate, expenses are down because the church was shut down. You know, so the church is back open. Expenses will be normal now going forward.
But the process is to, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't feel you're getting your question answered. So I just want to say, tell me if I'm wrong here. The process is for each ministry to give their budget. And so they're really the ones that are deciding how the money is spent. So there really isn't an overspending, if you will. Now, the deacons are the ones that will approve those budgets. Just because what they ask for doesn't mean that's what they're going to get. But, you know, there isn't really overspending, if you will, because each individual ministry is in charge of that. Does that better answer your question?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
moving forward, because I've just joined the church. So in my own mind and the things that I wanted to do, such as maybe help with the Thursday night meals, or such as when we're doing the camping in August, my brain says, okay, so if you're going to be doing this, and me having never done it before, do we kind of have access as how it's done before? How much meat did you order? How much this did you order? Without making someone who's newly volunteering worried about expenses and worried about all of that.
It would be the team leader that would be
Correct.
over that. So
as
you,
a
as a new person,
yeah, as a new person, and you look at that, you kind of think to yourself, well, that's half the money of what expenses are.
Right.
From 1 year to another, half. That's
Right,
quite a
right,
bit.
yeah. Unfortunately, there was just a really major catastrophe. You know, the world kind of fell apart, right? So that kind of happened. But, so you're kind of looking to get plugged in a little bit, I think, right?
Once a miser, always a miser. It's just
Yeah.
how my brain
Okay.
works. I'm sorry.
You're hired as a deacon.
Well, I was thinking we have 2 potential deacons here. we actually, all kidding aside, we would love to have some female deacons. So we've had some in the past. They were an asset to the team. We welcome them again. So, any other questions? Anything at all? Pastor Jesse says pie. In case you don't know, there's cherry pie, there's apple pie, and there's blueberry pie.
Oh, and there's gluten-free.
Oh, and there's gluten-free pie.
So if you need gluten-free, let me know.
There's lots of pie.
Not tonight.
No.
You know,
Hey.
we might put that on the calendar for July. If you want to come back, maybe we can make that happen. I'm just saying.
So I think
Talk to the planning.
I think the questions are over. Nobody has any more questions? I'll close this in prayer and we'll go eat some pie. How's that?
Did you say there's pie?
Yeah. Oh, Lord, we just thank you for this time to come together and discuss numbers. I know that they're not as exciting as the great message that we heard this morning from Pastor Jesse, but they're as equally as important in a different way. And we just ask that you continue to bless the church like you have. We thank you for all the giving, and we thank you for the leadership and the help, the volunteers. And we just ask that we would continue to be good stewards of your money and spend it wisely. We thank you for that. We ask that you bless this pie that we're about to consume and help it to nourish our bodies, and bless the hands that prepared it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. How many times do you think we said pie tonight?